me and the work and the ethic and the things I have in life and my family and my kids and whether it be love, material stuff, whatever, it's always my why, and that's the driving factor as to why I wake up every day and I hustle every day and stuff.
This is Don't Fear Grit with Rob Taormina. Marketing strategies and advertising technologies to help you build a better business.
All right, guys, welcome back. Now, if you've been living in a bubble, then what I'm about to say is not going to mean much to you. But if you have not been living under a rock, then you know that real estate is booming. And if it's booming, you probably want to know why, which is why we have two amazing individuals here. Now, they had no idea that they were going to be interviewed. And you know what? It's on purpose. This way, all the information that they're going to be unloading to you, you know it's going to be the honest truth versus them trying to like pre-script it to make it sound good. They're not trying to frame things to make it sound good. They're going to give you real answers here. So welcome to the stage. If we can like cut to a different camera right now for those of you who are watching instead of listening, I've got some great friends, Mike and Stephanie. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
So before we launch into it, I want everyone to know who you are, what you represent, and why you're the best in the entire world. Stephanie, if you can go first, let them know. That's your camera right there. Let them know who you are. What do you do?
I am Stephanie Lupo with the Lupo team, Keller Williams Realty, and I sell homes and work with many buyers on Long Island.
So you are selling real estate in one of the hottest markets right now, probably in the country. I know it's hot really everywhere, but like Long Island is just crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely booming right now.
Yeah.
Interest rates have dropped recently, so all the buyers that came out are really getting serious now. A lot of people that are renting.
Yes.
We're now looking at the
they're making that
opportunity.
Yes,
yeah. And with COVID and a lot of people coming from the city and from Queens, now it brought the demand for Long Island to be pretty crazy.
All right, so I know a lot of people are going to have questions for you. You're in the real estate world. Mike, let everyone know who you are, what you do, all that good stuff.
Sure. My name is Mike Vassallo. I'm from Financial Equities Mortgage Bankers. I'm a mortgage banker and director of sale with the company for the last 13 years. I specialize in all things mortgages. As Stephanie just said, the interest rates have been at all-time lows, and we really didn't think that we would be in this situation we're in now, where rates are in the twos. You know, a couple of years ago, we were all happy when rates were in the threes, and here we are in the twos. So it's been a wild ride over the last couple of months with the pandemic and real estate market the way it is. So it's been interesting.
Yeah. So you are two people that everyone wants to get a hold of right now. Because like you were saying, because of COVID. Now, for my listeners that are not in the New York market, what happened around here is New York City was shut down. And what happened over the period of a few months, people started to sort of abandon ship in the city and make their way to the suburbs. And then just the Long Island market just went crazy. There have been, I've heard stories of like, you know, houses being bid on now, multiple offers, things going over asking.
Every house is
you know?
like that now.
And then you couple that with the fact that the interest rates now are almost, I don't know if it's unprecedented, but in my lifetime, me being involved with real estate, I've never seen it this low.
No, I've never. This is like I said, my 13th year. When I first got into it, my cousin was buying a house and he was at 5% and he was ecstatic on a VA loan. And now thinking rates are in the twos, it's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
You know? And touching on that subject you had just said with the people from the city, I've had more people from the boroughs, client-wise, than I've ever had of people leaving Manhattan, Brooklyn, Bronx, etc., coming out to the island. So that's a whole new wave on top of the normal business.
Questions like where on Long Island to live, what what can I afford, what's it, what neighborhoods. There's so many questions that they have and they're like lost. So it's important to really know. I mean, for him being in the industry for so many years, I actually met him 7 years ago when I first started.
Something like that,
Yeah, and it's been pretty crazy just hearing the questions that people have right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Definitely screwing this.
Yeah. Listen, like there's a couple things here. I first want a little disclaimer. Like COVID, terrible thing that happened. But, out of it for me, like I'm a forever optimist. I don't even need a glass of water for me to feel like there's an opportunity. But so for here, silver lining is that people were able to at least find other places to live locally. They didn't have to make these crazy moves, and it benefited then the Long Island real estate market right now. But like stars have really aligned, because in a time when people felt they had to get out of the city and find places, the interest rates were so low, it actually financially also made sense for them. Like outside of the fact that, yes, what was going on in New York City was terrible, financially, it has benefited a lot of people. Explain to people why getting a 2.5% is so beneficial versus a 4%? Like what is that?
It just gives you more purchasing power. So I mean, if you started looking, let's say maybe last year when rates were in the 3s, now with rates in the 2s, your purchasing power might have just went up 50,000, 75,000, maybe even 100,000, which now changes the entire demographic. Now that your real estate agent is able to show you, where now it was such a small window, now you've opened up so many other opportunities in areas that maybe were not an option last year.
Right. So that means that they either can afford more or their payments could be even less if they want to stay in that same sort of bracket of a house that they want. That's incredible for people. Yeah. So that's amazing. So what a crazy ride I'm sure it's been for the last few months to be sort of in this world. You've seen probably things that you've never seen before. And you said something before. I think it was, what is it, like a family member or a friend? He got into his house, what was that, 5%?
5%, yeah.
And he was ecstatic, right?
Yeah, couldn't believe it.
Right.
Yeah.
When I first got my house, I locked in 4.25, and my whole family was like, "What? You got 4.25?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go out for a drink." I just locked in an amazing rate. Look at me,
money.
right?
Yeah.
And then fast forward, it's like, look at the sucker who locked in at 4.25. You know?
Well, it's all relative. So I mean, like I had clients that I just closed last year on their purchases, let's say in the 3s, and they're refinancing less than a year later to take advantage of the lower rates, and within the first year of you having a mortgage, you're mostly paying just interest on the loan anyway. So if you're going to do it, it makes sense to do it early on. But I have clients that just closed, less than a year, that are already just refinancing. So
amazing.
Like I said, I've never seen anything.
It's crazy.
Loan, like 6 years ago in my house.
Yeah, what was your rate?
It was like 4.6 something, and that was awesome. And this is like dealing with somebody that is the best of the best.
Yeah,
and I knew that I was getting an awesome rate. Everybody knew it. People were putting money into their banks to try to buy down the rate.
I know.
And I got
it's crazy.
Because I had the right connections at the time.
Yeah.
And now, right?
Now you look at it, I get 4.25. Oh my
God, right?
Like,
it's crazy.
We need to refinance.
Yeah, but not to beat a dead horse, but it is a really big deal where the rates are right now. So like I had, when I first bought my first house, it was 4.25. Then a few years later, I refinanced. I got to 3.25. I thought this is the lowest it's ever going to be.
Do it again, right?
And then it came down to where it is now, and it's unbelievable. And you're like your point of like purchasing power. Now let's shift to outside of the first time home buyer. Now let's look at investors who want to come in. Having that type of interest rate for people who are not maybe just cash buyers, because you got a couple different type of investors. People who just like all cash, they pull it out and do their thing. That's not, and this is not what this show's about. But for someone who wants to be like a new investor into real estate, right? And you've got X amount of dollars to be able to move into stuff. You might, prior to this, maybe was only able to buy one, right? But now your money goes a little bit further, so that purchasing power increases for even investors to be able to lock in a 2.5%.
So we're noticing now that a lot of the inventory is owned by investors. So you're definitely on the right track with that. So a lot of things on Long Island is that we're dealing with we have a limited inventory. So with the rates dropping, we have all of these buyers, and now that's why you were talking about the influx and the bidding wars that are going on in the houses, because there's so many buyers for not so many houses. Yeah. And now the investors are taking advantage. Sure. Because they're the ones that have the liquid cash, and they're buying all these foreclosures and all these houses, and they're flipping them. Yeah. And the inventory that is available right now are mostly owned by contractors. Yeah, it makes sense. And I'm not great at math, but I know math does not lie. And a difference of even a 1 percentage point at that level could be the difference of what, a few $100s per month, right? On that payment. Yeah, right. At least. So if you can find a place and lock in a rate like that, and you just saved yourself, let's say $300 per month on that mortgage, now. And this is why it's great for new investors, and I'm trying to encourage anyone who's listening, who's been thinking about it on the fence, get into it now. Because you can buy a place and get a renter in. That money that you're saving, those $300, now all of a sudden you're getting a renter, and even if you're only making $200 or $300 per month on that rent, that's huge, right? So there's an opportunity for people who want to start investing to do it now. Yeah. The risk is much lower. It's much easier to get into the game. And I'm going to say this as well. It's not going to last forever. No, it's not. I think that's the biggest question. Yeah. Yes. People are like, well, are the rates going to go down? Are they going to get lower?
Don't get greedy.
Don't get greedy. That's my word. I'm like, No. I'm like, lock it in now. Absolutely. Don't roll the dice. And I even have clients that are putting less money down. So like people are like, oh, it's 20% is the magic number to avoid PMI and things like that. Yeah. People are kind of almost going away from that because they're like, I'd rather keep cash is king. And they'd rather keep their money money in their pocket and borrow at 2 and whatever it may be or whatever, and just take a larger loan out because the rates are so cheap. So
absolutely.
It's been a wild ride.
That's incredible.
But we don't know when it's going to last.
Right. Which is why strike while the iron is hot on everyone's front. If you are a renter right now and you were thinking next couple years I'm going to make the shift, now's the time to do that. If you got to really maybe reach and extend yourself a little bit more financially, then figure out ways that you can save extra money. Figure out ways that you can cut a little bit here, cut some of the expenses, because enter the market today, especially right. That's what those people that are going to be doing it anyway in the next few years. Do it now. The last
2 years have been an increase in the rental prices substantially.
Oh, I heard that.
So it's been a little crazy with the rental. So definitely now is the time. If they could afford a rental on Long Island, they could definitely afford a mortgage.
The mortgage payment usually isn't much more, if not identical. To
right. And then at the end of the day, you own the asset.
Yeah.
Right.
And the write-offs of the taxes, mortgage, interest, which you don't have as a renter, obviously. So.
Right. Although now with the property tax on Long Island, you can only write off 10,000, right? Yep. And we all know, for anyone who doesn't live on Long Island, property taxes here are insane. Well, people in the other country, other part of the U.S., they don't understand that. They're like, oh man, my property taxes are $800.
Yeah.
That's not even my monthly.
Right, that's my electric bill.
A lot of people felt like they couldn't afford to live on the island because of the taxes, but now because of the interest rates, that affordability is another reason.
Yeah, that's a great point.
They can afford it.
Really great point.
The taxes are going to be on the payment, but with the difference in the rate, definitely.
It all helps.
It all helps. Yeah.
Now, for someone who is now considering selling their home, what type of leverage does a seller have these days?
Well, because of the lack of inventory.
Yeah.
When you have high demands, obviously you get more money for your product.
Yeah.
So that's basically what the sellers are seeing. I know that some people are a little bit weary because of COVID, not knowing what to do or where they're going to move. But you do see a lot of people that are at that breaking point, like, oh, well, I kind of want to move out of state now, or, I wanted to retire, or I do want to sell my house, or I could get so much more money for my house now and move further out east, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They're kind of now jumping and they're saying, let me make that next move, because they know they're going to have multiple offers.
Yeah.
And they're going to get the most for their money.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm seeing as far as on a seller's point of view.
Gotcha. Now, with the change in the interest rates, have you seen now from a bank's perspective, are the banks becoming a little bit more strict on what is required, or is that loosening up, or is that has pretty much unchanged?
It depends on the person. So for a regular W-2 employee, no, it's basically status quo. On a self-employed level, it's changed dramatically because a lot of businesses have been shut down and everything over this pandemic we've been in. From a mortgageability standpoint, no, the process is exactly the same. We on our end are seeing a lot of clients going above and over the asking price of the home, where we're running into appraisal issues where the house is not appraising. But in terms of language being signed into the contract of them waiving the appraisal contingency, these buyers are okay with purchasing the house even if it doesn't appraise, which is another thing that really is not common. So I have a client that's closing this Friday, and the appraisal came in $40,000 short, and they were okay with it, and that's it. So it's like right from go, you're already $40,000 below what the house appraised for. So
because it's only happened during the COVID, right? The influx of the sales and all of this rates changing and everything. The appraisals are not appraising because they go based off of what was already closed.
Right.
Because that was 6 months ago or 8 months ago, they don't have the updated data to show that this industry and the market has changed in all areas on Long Island.
Right.
So that's where that appraisal issue is coming into, I find. But now that things are kind of getting more into closings and they're starting to filter into the MLS and they're able to use them as comps.
Yeah, the appraisers now have access to these.
They have access to them. They're starting to get better in the appraisals.
Yeah. Okay.
But in the beginning, it's been it was really hard.
Tough,
but the buyers were still adamant that that's the house they wanted. They knew what was going on, and they still wanted it.
But isn't it an issue, or can it be an issue with the banks just not loaning on that? I mean, they're not going to necessarily loan on something where that person's willing to spend 30-40% more than asked.
Well, they will, as long as the bank goes off the appraised value. So if you're purchasing something for $1 million, but it only appraises for $500, the bank is only going to go off of the value of the $500. So what you choose to pay for it is your business.
The buyer has to make up for that.
Correct.
I want everyone to understand that.
We're looking at is that in the event that this person would have foreclosed, the house had to buy the bank had to buy the house back.
Yes.
Are we able to recoup our money?
Yes.
So on $1 million purchase, if it only appraised for $500, we know we're only going to get $500 back if we had to sell it. So that's what our numbers are going off of not the $1 million that the client was
exactly.
Which is why a lot of sellers aren't going with the typical FHAs, 5% downs, 3% down, because they know that right now they need the money down to kind of make up for that difference in the appraisal.
Waiving that appraisal.
So it's important that you have a realtor that's able to guide you through these things, because if you're just going in blinds, or you're going in with someone who's not experienced with dealing with these transactions, you're not going to know that these things are going to creep up and come up. And it's right to prepare them. Like, okay, you paid over, so this is you have to understand where the comps are at right now, what kind of offer you're putting in, and educate them, because a lot of times people think that they know, but there's a lot more to it.
100%. Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, right now, we've got information at our fingertips, right? Everyone, we walk around with this walking encyclopedia called a cell phone. So everyone thinks that they're an expert in everything. Now, with a market like this where it's hot, I bet you there's a lot of people who think, I can do it on my own. What do you say to that person? Why do people still need to leverage a real estate agent, a mortgage broker? What value do you guys bring to the table? And also, maybe just attack that myth that someone can in fact do this on their own, because they're thinking like, I'll save the 1%, I'll save the point, I'll save all that stuff. Like, I know for a fact that that's not possible and it's stupid, right? But from an expert's perspective, why is that foolish for someone to try to do this on their own? I
feel that we are the ones that are out there doing this on a day-to-day basis. So if there's somebody who, let's say for yourself, this is your business, this is what you do, right? But when you're not a realtor, you're looking at it like, okay, yeah, I could sell my house, it's a kitchen, it's a living room. No, there's things that are going to come up in your inspection reports. How are you going to handle the negotiations with that? There's things that are going to come up with the loan officer. So having the relationships on a day-to-day basis with Mike, communicating with him, knowing the updates that are going on day to day with the rates and things that are changing, or being able to call him and ask questions and having that leverage, I think that helps a lot with being able to guide somebody, because if they might say, oh, I know a loan officer, I'll just call them and ask my question.
I know a guy.
I know a guy.
Everybody knows a guy. Everybody has
somebody. But how many of us are there really? But then who are the ones that are producing? Who are the ones that are really taking the time to...
But wait a minute, my nephew took the exam a few years ago, so he definitely knows.
That's a common one. Yeah,
right, exactly. He passed his exam, so he's okay.
Right.
No, but it's the experience that really teaches you, and being out in the fields and having the right connections and the partnerships, so that you're able to have even more knowledge accessible for your clients.
Absolutely.
The industry is changing on a daily basis, and when you're working with someone who's in it day in, day out, we're privy to those changes or those different things, or putting an offer together and figuring out how to go about it the best way to put that client in the best situation to have their offer accepted. Or when it comes to locking in the rate, what do I do? Do I lock in? Do I not lock in? Having someone that we're masters of our craft. That's who you want in your corner at the end of the day, in my opinion. But can someone attempt to do it themselves? Yes. But usually it doesn't end up the way it's supposed to be.
Or they think something like, a seller's concession I could use because they know of a seller's concession and what it offers them, but they don't realize how it might affect them on their loan or on their offer. So there's a lot of things that need to go into play.
The cell phone has a lot of great information on it, but also creates a lot of false information, and then that's what creates a lot of uncertainty in the market. And
so to that point, it is important, absolutely, and I'm on board with you guys, that it's important to always find someone who is an expert in something that you need help with. Allow their experience and guidance to, navigate those waters so you'll get the best result possible. At the same time, make sure that what you're finding is in fact an expert, because not all people are created equal in the sense of what they say. Correct. Someone might say, hey, I know how to do something, right? But it doesn't mean you're an expert. It's like that old Holiday Inn commercial. Like, oh, I stayed in a Holiday Inn. You ever see? It's like a guy who's like in a surgeon room, right? And he's like performing brain surgery, and they're like, wow, doctor, where'd you learn how to do this? He was like, I stayed at a Holiday Inn. That's probably not the guy that you want performing brain surgery, right? So the same thing. That's probably not the same type of real estate agent you want working with you, or a guy, a loan officer, or mortgage, all that stuff. Right. You want someone who's legitimately an expert. So how does someone who is brand new into this, they want to sell their home, they want to buy a home, whatever the case may be, where do they go? Where do they start? How do they find someone who's actually an expert?
I guess it depends on who they call first. So if they were to call me and say, hey, Stephanie, I am thinking about buying a house, and I just, I looked at how much money I have in savings, and I'm thinking now I should invest. What do you think? I would give them Mike's phone number or whoever's phone number and say, hey, just give him a ring and pick his brain, go over your financials with him, and he'll guide you. He'll be able to tell you where to start and what documents he would need to see to be able to answer those questions. So that's basically my first point of contact when somebody asks me that.
That's a good point, because experts work with other experts.
Right.
So they definitely have a Rolodex of people that they can recommend.
I want to make sure that they're qualified, that they're able to go out and buy a house before I take the time out of my schedule to show them home. So it kind of works both ways. You know, do you want to just go out shopping for a house, especially in times like COVID?
Yeah.
You know, when you're going to expose yourself, no, make sure that you're prepared, that you can afford it, know what your affordability is, and then from there we start on, you know, locations and everything else. Right.
Yeah, I always called the real estate agent the gatekeeper, because it really, like, I feel like the client really starts with the real estate agent, and then from the real estate agent is referring the mortgage lender, is referring the home inspector, their attorney, then even after closing, what moving company, what contractor, what
cleaner,
plumber,
like all
cleaner.
That's so a great point.
She, you know, real estate agent puts the food on the table for so many people within the transaction. I always kind of said that the real estate agent's the most important part. You know, it's the truth. You know, without the real estate agent, it starts with the real estate agent and ends with the real estate agent.
You're actually making a great point.
Yeah,
partnerships are really important because of that. You know, and having somebody that you know will answer the phone and that is available for you also, because there's a lot of, again, we're a needle in a haystack. There's a million realtors. There's a million loan officers.
I say roaches.
Okay.
I call it, there's a million of us, right? Million real estate agents, a million mortgage people.
Who's actually available for you? Who's going to pick up the phone? I know, Mike, sometimes there's times where it's like crazy. I have a client who's going nuts, and I'm like, Mike, and I call him, and it's like 9:30, and he's like, I'm putting the baby to bed. Or he'll text me, and he'll be like, hey, what's going on? And I'll text him, I'm putting the baby to bed, and I'll get you right back. But we know that we're always working, and that he's going to get back to me, and he is going to answer my question. And that's important, too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So wrapping this up, just a couple more questions for you guys. This might be a little bit off topic, but on topic for all of our audience here. Number one, this is for both of you. How would you define the word grit? How do you define the word grit? I'm going to put you on the spot.
All right. I mean, grit. I mean, just somebody who basically is just, you know, working day in and day out, eats, sleeps, and drinks their craft, and I mean, just kind of gets dirty in a way, if you want to call it that way. That just is always, you know, in the face of what they're doing, and I mean, that's what I would consider grit.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to throw it to you now.
I always said grit was more of like perseverance. Like, you're just going to keep pushing on no matter what challenges get in your way. You're always going to just find the solution and make it happen. I mean, to me, that's like grit is like hard work, perseverance, just do it.
Yeah.
Like
love it.
That to me is just like,
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Very cool. All right. Last question for you guys is the hardest one. What is a book that you've read? It could be any book. It could be Dr. Seuss when you were a kid or something more professional now, but name one book that you've read.
One book that I've read. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a book reader. I'm more of a podcast type of radio person, to be honest with you.
You can steal one. We've got some on the shelf here. Be like,
oh, that one. I don't know. This is something that I lack. So my father, you know, growing up with two teachers as parents, reading was instilled
He's like, shame on you.
On a daily basis. And I kind of tell him the only books that I like to read have pictures in them.
Okay.
And I'm not a big reader, I have to admit. So I don't really know off the top of my head. Books that I've read lately have been like trying to like design for houses and flipping houses and stuff like that I'm starting to do on my own. But in terms of a specific book, like, no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Right. It's more like how I can. That was like the same thing in college too. I would only really do really well in things that interest me.
Yes.
So I find myself that now that I'm searching for books or podcasts or anything, that I will engage with it. So my last book that I read was The Shift. It was by Gary Keller, who owns Keller Williams, and that teaches you just about how to handle the shift in the market, how to handle the consumers on a buyer side, seller side. That to me was something that I read to try to help me in my business and to make sure that I was on point. And the last before that was probably 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
You're making me look bad right now.
No, but I am a big reader. Cause, I mean, I've just had a baby, so like I had a lot of downtime. I was like,
I'm reading like nursery books for my kids to go to sleep. That's the last book I read.
Still like 2 years ahead. Like 2 years ahead of me.
I will say this. So her father years ago referred me a book to read that was by Gary Keller, and I can't think of the name of it right now. And it really was like, "What's Your Why?" and I think that was like a Keller Williams,
was that
like
the one thing.
The one thing, yes, that was it. And he gave me that book, and I did read it, and that's like probably the last book that I could think that I actually sat and read. And I'll be honest with you, like I even said this to her when we had reconnected, that the why, people are like, you know, that's me and the work and the ethic and the things I have in life and my family and my kids, and whether it be love, material stuff, whatever, it's always my why, and that's the driving factor as to why I wake up every day and I hustle every day and stuff. So that book, that book was probably the last book I read, and it made a lasting impression on me. So
ultimately, that's all that matters. So that's
I redeemed myself.
My father instills these books. He passes them on to me.
I love it. I love it. All right, well, this is where I want you guys to endorse yourselves. I want everyone to know, again, like we started the show, your name again, what company you represent, but more importantly, how can they find you? Give us your social media handles, phone numbers, whatever you want. Go ahead, unload.
All right, so I'm Stephanie Lupo Mike Vassallo. I am Stephanie with the Lupo team here at Keller Williams, or we're not here at Keller Williams, with Keller Williams. And you can find me on Instagram. I'm under Your Fave Long Island Realtor.
And for myself, my name's Mike Vassallo, once again, with Financial Equities Mortgage Bankers. On Instagram, you could find me at the MV team. I'm on Facebook, and also at my website at financialequities.com.
Fantastic. Guys, girls, thank you so much for joining me today. This was incredible. You guys just unload a tremendous amount of value here. So I appreciate you guys giving us those secret inside tips.
It was a pleasure.
I think you offer some really great guidance to our audience here. This is a great market. I think what I'm pulling away from, I think everyone needs to be encouraged right now. If you were thinking about entering either as an investor or a first-time home buyer, you need to, at the very least, reach out to you guys that have that first conversation. Because that's not going to cost them anything, right?
Correct.
Yeah. You could always call.
Exactly.
Any questions you have.
Right. Don't get greedy, and don't be the last person on the train. Right. So, guys, thanks you so much, again, for joining me. Thank you guys also for tuning into the show, whether you're watching it on YouTube or one of the other video channels or listening to our podcast. We love and appreciate every single one of our audience members here. Guys, remember, don't fear the process. And don't fear grit. We'll see you next time.